started. I'm going to talk a little bit about me, so if somebody's a little late, it's going to be okay. My name is Lenny Gotter. I used to be a craft distiller. I founded Eastside Distilling way back in 2007. So I guess I count myself as kind of the second wave of craft distillers. I'm here in Portland, Oregon. I grew my business to about $1 million by 2013. And in 2014, I brought in investors and we, through a reverse merger, took the company public, which is the first craft distillery to go public. You can find it on NASDAQ under the symbol EAST. The reverse merger public thing is a whole other conversation, which we can talk about at some point. But let me go through some of the basics of financing and how to get some money for your craft distillery. If anyone on here has not formed their company yet, I would highly recommend you get a C Corp or an S Corp instead of an LLC. At some point, you're going to want to sell shares in your company. And in an LLC, you have to sell a percentage of ownership, and that can be kind of tricky. Also, some states have weird laws where all LLC members have equal votes. So a 1% member might have the same vote as somebody who's a 50% member. So I'm just going to throw that out there. All right, I found some really good fundraising basic tips off of Thoroughbred Spirits. So let's just chat about them. By the way, the disclaimer is I am not a finance person. I don't work for a bank. I've worked with a lot of craft distilleries over the last 15 years. And so I'm just a guy that knows a bunch of stuff. So that's my disclaimer. Let's go. All right. The 3 F's, family, friends, and fanatics. This is the first group you should go to for funding. These are people who are willing to chip in capital because they believe in you, are excited about the product, and are want to be part of the industry without necessarily having to distill anything themselves. It's not hard to find people that want to be in spirits, and those are some people you'll want to talk to be your early investors. Grants. Depending on your situation, you may qualify for government funding. There's a grant program called the Value Added Producer Grant by the USDA. This is if you have a farm or agricultural land you want to repurpose, you might be able to get assistance from the government. There's also lots of different grants, federal grants, state grants, tourism grants, local municipal grants. Here in Southeast Portland, there were federal grants for underutilized commercial property, which is very close to where we were, but we weren't quite in the right space. So there are grants out there. You might want to take a little time to look for them. The few people I've known that have actually applied for and got grants actually worked with people to write the grants. So that might be your best path if you find something you qualify for. Let's start with small stuff. Whatever payment processing your platform using, like QuickBooks or Square or anything else, I'm sure you've already gotten emails or messages that they will offer you short-term loans. The loan can be in your account in a few days. If you spread the fees across the full 18 months, the fees equate to about 6.7 to 10% APR, which is slightly higher than your small business loan. I will say from experience, none of these loans have grace periods, so you'll be making payments almost right away, depending on which one. Sometimes they take payments out of your, like Shopify takes payments out of your money before they give it to you. So, or they just take it out of your bank account. I'm sure we've all heard of SBA loans. How do they work? You apply for an SBA loan through a lending institution like a bank or credit union. That lender applies to the SBA for a loan guarantee, which means if you default on the loan, the government pays the lender the guaranteed amount. In my experience, unless you're well established, you'll probably have to personally guarantee the loan. I'm going to make some recommendations for companies that I've either heard of or I know people that have worked with. I have found, generally speaking, it's good to work with companies that understand the distilling space and understand the distilling model. As someone who's had to try to explain to finance people how our business works, you're better off trying to find somebody that at least has some idea. Next, you can get equipment, leasing, and lending. And from a cash flow perspective, I'm amazed at how many people don't know this, but from a cash flow perspective, leasing can be much more attractive than buying. Leasing provides tax benefits. It includes payments for leases generally being tax deductible as ordinary necessary business expenses. I mean, there are some deduction limits. And if you're not understanding what I mean, if you pay $200 on a lease, you write that off that year. If you buy a large piece of capital equipment, you may have to amortize that over 7 years. So you get the write-off over 7 years. With the lease, you get it right away. There are some companies that specialize in leasing in our space. North Star Leasing and Heartland Bank are a couple of good ones that I know people have worked with. I know several companies that have worked with Live Oak Bank, which you'll see these guys at the trade shows. They will do financing for barrel filling, new equipment. I think they also do financing on barrel storage. So they will evaluate how much your storage barrels are worth and you can borrow against them. What I have been involved with for the last couple of years is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a way to collect money from a large number of people via online platforms. And instead of a few big investors, you have lots of small investors. Republic Restoratives, I saw them in 2018 give their speech about how they worked with Indiegogo. They've done two $300,000 raises. I worked with Skunk Brothers in 2020 to raise $1 million. Jason at Copperworks in Seattle is a good friend of mine, and they have raised almost $2 million in 2022 and 2023. How does equity crowdfunding work? You actually just sell shares in your company. People can put in, like, say, $250 and they get 50 shares of your company. When I was searching around, I did find a company that does debt crowdfunding instead of selling shares, which is Honeycomb Credit. I have not worked with them before, but I did see Distillery related raises getting around $100,000. I have worked with Start Engines for the last couple of years, and you can raise up to 1.23 million on the first raise. And you sell shares of the company. Start Engine manages the shares. So right now, they don't really have the owners don't really have a vehicle to sell the shares. They are working on some way to trade shares. The way the investor makes their money back is when you either buy back the shares or you sell the company. It's a fairly new platform, and honestly, most people that have invested have yet to see anything come back from their investment. Generally, you need to have a plan to raise $100,000 in the first 30 days to get anything from Start Engine to promote your platform at all. Meaning, Start Engine will list your platform and they'll put it up there, but they're not going to do anything to help you unless you start to grow, which is kind of a common theme with crowdfunding. Let me share my screen and I'll show you a couple of them right now. So Rockin' Vodka has been on there for about 6 months. Now he's a celebrity. That's Rick from Cheap Trick. So he does have the celebrity thing going on, but $473,000 is not a small amount of money. Here's another company called Belle Isle. I noticed here they're doing, it looks like possibly a loan. So I will have to talk to my Start Engine people, whereas this might be that they're getting a loan for it instead of selling shares. But they're already at $488,000, not too shabby. And then Ola Brew has raised $1.9 million, huge success. So there are people raising money on Start Engine, and you can make real money on Start Engine. One of the biggest things we noticed with Skunk Brothers was that the investors bought product. I mean, around Christmas time, we were selling $15,000 or $20,000 worth of product on their online store just to investors. So these people will become your champions. So not only will they invest in your company, they'll become champions of your brand, and they will want to help you. They'll want to help you succeed. And then there are a couple of companies that have done Kickstarters. You can't sell any alcohol on Kickstarters. You can sell product and tours and such. So here's a company, Barnstormer Distillery. They raised $28,000. They sold t-shirts, tastings and tours, things like that. And I did find another company that is active right now. First one started, there we go. Here's a small company that's just getting started. They've already raised $30,000 goal, and they're doing the same thing. They're selling t-shirts and art and things like that. It's a little unconventional to use Kickstarter, but if you have cool swag or you have cool stuff or you have an audience, you can make money on Kickstarter or Start Engine. The biggest thing with these platforms is you got to have a good mailing list. You have to have a good social media platform. I mean, that's pretty much that way for any business now. You have to have an audience. And if you have an audience, then you can get people excited and you can work on raising $2 million. There are other platforms such as WeFunder, and there's a couple others I think that you can also sell shares with and raise money for your company. I've also, I'm working with somebody right now who, this is done mostly on the tech side of things, but you can use AngelList, and they have a software platform to make it easier for you to issue shares. I haven't done it myself. I'm getting shares from him because I'm working as an advisor. It's something that's done more in the tech side of the business, of the industry, but they can help you issue shares simply and easily in your company. So when you bring in investors, you can sell shares to them. At least that's what I've been told. I haven't gone through the process yet. When I do, I'll have more of an update. And then lastly, possibly you've heard of Distill Ventures. They do investment and financing for 250,000 to 10 million. Generally speaking, they're investing in bigger companies, and they want to invest in a company that, like here in Portland, they invested in House Spirits, which has now become Westland Whiskey, which has now become part of Diageo. So from what I've seen, they invest in companies that they want to eventually acquire. I've also talked to other companies, other buyers and things like that. So that is all I actually had for this particular presentation. If people want to ask questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can put a question in the group chat. The most exciting stuff I've been doing lately is the equity crowdfunding, and I probably wouldn't have taken my company public 10 years ago if I'd had this as an option. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, hi. I have a question. What do you think is like the best approach? Is it to get started like at the very beginning? Like, is it crowdfunding? Is it financing? To even just get enough money to build something?
If you're just getting, if you're talking about starting a brand new company, I would make sure to have enough capital from the friends and family or people through your own network are going to be where you're going to find money for investors and money to start a distillery. What I will tell you is that you want to make sure you have money for marketing, sales and marketing. And I see a lot of craft distilleries, if they have $300,000 to start their distillery, they spend 250 of it, building the distillery, and then they don't have funds later for sales and marketing. And I can't stress that enough. I mean, I just got done telling you about how you need an email list and you need an audience, and you need to bring people to your brand, and you have to do that through marketing. But as far as getting initial startup cash, I got money from my mom. I mean, that's where we have to look for capital sometimes.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I'm sure oh, sorry. When you were looking at those cases that you were sharing, I think it was from not Kickstarter, but Start Engine.
Yes.
What do from your position, what do you think separates the $400,000 to like the $2 million funds that grow?
It's all marketing. It's all, how big is your email list? How many people do you have following you on social media? I actually own a publishing company, which is why I have all this nerd stuff behind me. And we just finished a $2.6 million Kickstarter selling a game product. And it all just came down to, it's all marketing. It's all marketing and advertising. And, you know, if you have 200,000 followers on your social media, that's just 200,000 people that may be willing to invest in your company. There are other avenues you can look for influencers and there are other ways you can draw people to your site. And, you know, Facebook is still king as far as advertising. But like I said, you need to have a plan to get to 100K, and to do that, you're going to need people. So start growing your social media, start growing your email list, have people that are going to care and want to be part of your business. That's the difference between, I looked on Start Engine today, and there's no distilleries that are stuck in like the $80,000 to $100,000 range. And I think they've become a little more picky. But I've also seen plenty of spirits brands get stuck around $100,000. And, you know, it's not a small amount of work to get the raise launched. And while $100,000 is better than no dollars, yeah, again, you're right. We want to be looking at $1 million. Jason at Copperworks has been around. Copperworks has been around for quite a while. He's also really grown a great audience, and he has just a lot of people that love the distillery. And he was also planting seeds months before they went live. So he had little flyers. He was emailing people ahead of time. And yeah, I mean, it's you plan, you just have to plan for it and make sure you're going to have a big bang to get started. I did see
what kind
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was wondering what kind of documentation or information, stuff like that, should we be gathering ahead of time that they'll have questions already even look at these programs?
The best piece of advice I can give you is to have decent books. I mean, you don't have to have airtight books, but make sure if you don't have a bookkeeper, have a good bookkeeper. Make sure your CPA goes over your books. The biggest thing you have to do for Start Engine is your books will have to be independently audited, which isn't that big of a deal if you already have if you already have decent books like that a bookkeeper and a CPA has gone through. Other than that, there's some paperwork and there's some fees. And then there's also the rate, depending on when you file the raise, your audited financials are only good for so long. So for example, if you launched a raise last November and the raise was going well and you wanted to make it to May or later, you would need audited financials for 2023 by April. So there's a little weird window where everything's great for a certain amount of time, and it only matters around that April timeframe. So like if you launched it in June, you'd have plenty of time for having to worry about that. But it's not, the process itself isn't that hard. You have to write a whole bunch of information about your company. So, here, I'll share again. So let's look at some of these companies. So, look at everything that's on this page. Look at all these graphics. Start Engine will make these graphics for you. And then there's this, there's a whole bunch of stuff about the pitch. This is why you're awesome. This is why we continue to be awesome. Here's stuff about every person that works in the company, terms. And then there's all of this. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the offering that you have to come up with. Where is it here? Well, I'm not going to be able to find that there, but there's a whole bunch of questions that you have to answer about your company. And if you raise this certain amount of money, how long do you think the business is going to be able to handle it? If you don't raise this much money, how long do you think the business is going to have to can handle it? There's just a huge laundry list of questions. And other than time, it's not that big of a deal. What we've done is just looked at what other companies are doing and then kind of paraphrase what what they're coming up with. You don't have to like reinvent the wheel or anything like that, but there will be, you might spend 50 hours or more just coming up with stuff to put on the offering, because the actual offering is a long SEC document that has just, you have to tell a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff, but it's nothing super complicated. It's just a lot of work. And then I saw a question here from Ernest. Are shares typically regular common shares, or is each raise a preferred shares offer? How do you manage previous investors' concern about dilution? In Start Engine, all the shares are common shares. And as far as dilution goes, when your initial, it all comes down to valuation. So when your initial investors invested in your company, it was worth, say, $1 million. And then when you do the Start Engine raise, after you've been in business for a while, then your valuation is at $5 million. And if you look at some of the valuations of some of the companies, they're reasonably high valuations. There are companies, I've seen distilleries do anywhere from 7x to 10x of revenue, which is, you're going to have a hard time talking to an investor with your mouth and convincing them your company is worth 10x of annual revenue, assuming you don't have 10,000 barrels in stock or something like that. So you can get investors at a lower dilution rate because you're valuating your company higher than certainly when people first invested. Hopefully that answers your question. Anybody else have any questions? Going once.
Hey, Lenny, can you just
Yeah.
let everyone know how to like get a hold of you and your
Oh, sure.
availability?
Yeah, I'll put my website here. And I'm always willing, if anybody on this call is interested in doing something like Start Engine or Kickstarter, I'm more than happy to just explain the basics to you, over the phone. It's complicated, but it's not complicated. And now that I've been through the process several times, I know I was just talking to someone at Start Engine yesterday about how I know Start Engine probably better than almost anyone at Start Engine. So I'm more than happy to answer some questions or explain things a little bit further. And there is a survey at the end, which Todd told me I'm supposed to tell you, and you're supposed to talk nicely about me because I try to be nice and helpful. If anyone doesn't have any other questions, then I will say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for swinging by and saying hi, and hopefully I provided you some insights.
Sorry,
And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
I actually do have one quick question.
Yeah.
At the beginning, you had mentioned about leasing equipment. In putting currently, I'm in the process of still putting all the numbers together for initial budgets for startup. Are there what are the organizations that you had mentioned about people who would be leasing like distilling equipment or anything like that?
I will, I'll put a link to everything I said here in chat. Can everyone see that? It's a Dropbox link.
Yep.
Okay. And you can also email me too. So the companies I listed on there are companies I've known people that have worked with, or I've heard good things about.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Absolutely. I also judge for ADI, so I might be judging some of your products. Julia Narney is one of our lead judges. She's also on the call too, and there's a lot of really good stuff coming up in the craft spirits industry, and I'm really excited with everything that's going on. You guys are making a lot of great products, and maybe you'll see me at the trade show every year too. And Tom said he had interest in currently in the process of buying out LLC partners. Okay. Tom, if you have any other questions, just reach out to me direct. Happy to chat with you.
And I'm really sorry, Lenny, but I don't see the Dropbox link. Did you post that in the chat
Oh,
as public?
Oh no, I sent it to Ernest. Sorry. Let's try that again.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Sure. Haven't used the chat in Zoom for a while. All right. Hey, thank you everyone for your time. And hopefully I'll see you around, or I'll be tasting some of your products. And I always try to stop by craft distillers whenever I travel. So perhaps we will run into each other, and everyone have a great day. Thanks for your time.